Hello, I want to make a video about the connection between orbs and and telepathy. Now, I think orbs are cast-offs of witches. The Bible speaks of witches casting off parts of themselves and sending those parts to do work for them. And it says they then return to the people who cast them off, having done whatever it was they were told to do. And I think that stealing energy or thoughts or things like that is some of what they are told to do by the people who cast them off, the witches. I have bad neighbours who are witches who victimize me constantly, psychically. And of course, it's difficult to prove. And they say you're mad if you if you make the allegations, so you can't even talk about it without being further victimized. But I do anyway, because I think it needs to be discussed and maybe one day investigated and done something about. Anyway, so you have these cast-offs. Now, you can see orbs with heat cameras, because they give off a little bit of heat, so they can be seen by the heat cameras, and they have, I think, electrical bodies, and that's what the heat is sensing. That's what's being sensed, I think. They have, being alive anyway, they would have a little bit of electricity in them. And being just energy, they can actually go through your body, and they do go through your body. But they usually seem to prefer orifices, which probably have a lot of nerve endings or something, and they just like being in people's orifices, and they seem to find they get a lot of benefit from going in people's noses, believe it or not. Now, I think that because the nose is near the brain, that it has a lot of, it has got a lot of nerve endings, but I think it also has some sort of link to the brain. Like they say, apparently the eyes are a type of neuron that is really closely connected to the brain, and is so closely connected to it that apparently it's part of the brain. That's what they say now, that the eyes are part of the brain, because they're just so closely connected to it, and there's not really any kind of interruption. They just go directly to the brain. And I think they also work on the eyes as well. But I noticed something interesting about the ones in my nose, and that is that it's more noticeable, kind of. Well, it happens with the eyes as well, but it happens, and more often I notice it with the ones that go in my nose. I've noticed that if I have a particular mood, usually a positive mood, I can then sort of sniff, and some mucus in my nose will kind of just, I don't know, cover the inside of my nostrils or something a bit, and change my mood, and it just kind of takes it away, like it's just disappeared. And it just seems like the mucus has absorbed the thought or the mood or the good feeling or whatever. Now, you might wonder, how could that happen? And it does seem strange and funny and ridiculous and things like that. But if you think about it just logically, and I admit it's strange, it's taken me a while to work out. It's actually taken me years to try and figure all this out, because it's just not something you're used to thinking of, and you have to give it a lot of thought to try and understand it properly. But anyway, I think it is literally because orbs, once they get in your nose, have some energy, electrical energy, but they don't have a lot of physical manifestation, really. So I think they just kind of interact with you physically and build up some sort of mucous membrane around them, and that mucous membrane is of a type that somehow is going to be effective at absorbing electrical impulses. And I think you could prove this scientifically. In fact, you can a little bit anyway, because mucus contains a lot of salts, apparently. It has quite a few salts in it. And salts are what the body uses to transmit electrical impulses. Things like calcium are in the nerve endings, transmitting impulses and helping you to think or act and so on. And as well as calcium, there's some other things, potassium, that's a salt, another salt, So I think they build up a layer of saltiness, which at some point they will, when it suits them, they will just use to splatter on your on you in a way that absorbs the electrical impulses around you, say in your nostrils. And I think this is what's happening. I think I started getting annoyed about it and resisting it by sniffing away any build-up or blowing my nose or whatever before they managed to do what they wanted to do, more recently, say in the last few weeks. But I noticed that they were still able to do this around about the time that I was going to sleep. Just as I was about to fall asleep, they would they would sense that my brain waves were changing, and because they thought I was about to fall asleep, they went ahead and did their splatter thing and changed my mood, took away my good mood and just left emptiness in its place. So I was like taking in information but not feeling anything, not having any kind of, or having very little emotion. And it was just like, first of all, it was an invasion of privacy. And secondly, they were changing me. So they were invading my privacy and actually changing who I was as a person, because they were interfering with me and changing me emotionally, changing me inside, psychologically. And I thought that was like some kind of psychological assault or something, or theft of my good mood, theft of my thoughts, theft of my sleepiness that was going to give me a good night's sleep. Honestly, things like that, and leaving me awake. So, and this will be the motive for some of these things, to take someone's sleepiness. If somebody has insomnia, if a witch has insomnia and they want to sleep, they will literally steal your sleepiness. Okay, so how does this work? Well, I think, as I said, the materials they build up around them, that they generate you to build up or somehow attract to themselves electrically and chemically or whatever, and maintain around themselves, have salts in them and are ideal to somehow transmit to them your thoughts. They're a kind of medium, like a wire transmitting electricity from the power station to a radio, for example, or to your phone, for example, or computer, for example. And I think, and that is absolutely true. That is exactly what they are. Being salts, having a lot of salt in them, they would be absolutely suited to transmit the electrical impulses of your brain to the orb, which would then go back to the witch with your thoughts or feelings or sleepiness or health even. I think a lot of people's illness might be due to being robbed of healthy impulses by witches. For example, they may have, just for example, healthy kidneys or a healthy liver by nature, and the orbs would go to them and absorb the healthy impulses, because they're electrical as well. They're electrical as well, and they would absorb the healthy impulses and then take them off to the witch to be sold to some other witch. Seriously, or even to a doctor who wants to get credit for making someone well so they can get money. A doctor, a witch doctor, who's pretending to be a normal doctor. I think this is happening, to be really honest with you. I do. And it's also confusing science in the lab and that, because they then study these people's genes to see what's wrong with them and why they're making them sick. And it's not the genes that are making them sick. The genes are healthy genes, and that is why they're being picked on. But because this kind of thing isn't acknowledged, the studies go on targeting healthy genes as sick genes for a long time. Who knows how long? And it doesn't matter to scientists who are witches as well, because they're quite happy to do useless science, because it strings out the amount of time they have doing that work. They can take 100 years over it because they have so many wrong paths to go down that they've created for themselves, instead of solving the problem in a few years by targeting the organs of the people who are actually sick. Now, you might think, why don't the people who are actually sick want to be targeted for medicine anyway? Well, that's a puzzle. I don't really know. I suppose maybe being selfish and nasty people anyway, they'll find some way to help themselves that way as well. But in the meantime, they also plan to target other people. So anyway, a few nights ago, this was very obvious with some orbs that were in my nose. I kept trying to go to sleep, and every time I did, I felt them just about to splatter in my nose. When you get that sudden build-up of mucus in your nose that makes you want to sniff, you suddenly get too much and it makes you want to sniff. That's probably an orb making you splatter it in your nose, and then it's robbing you. But because you're conscious and talking to someone, or busy, working, doing something, you don't really notice. You especially don't really notice so much when you're awake, because you probably have more to occupy you than allows you to notice. And so you just get on with drinking your tea or watching TV or serving someone or whatever, and you don't really notice what's happening to you. You might have mild mood changes here and there throughout the day that you can't really account for, but you don't really care, because you've got to go on with life, and you think about it later maybe. And maybe you will think about it and wonder what the hell that happened for, and just think, oh, that's a shame. I was happy, and then suddenly I wasn't, and then I was, and then I wasn't, and it just seems normal to go on like that day after day. It just seems like that's the pattern of life, that your mood changes. But I actually think that your mood changes either because you do lose interest in something and want to do something else, or you are distracted, legitimately distracted, but sometimes because of things like orbs that are literally invading you. And if you have ever suddenly found yourself unable to sleep after you got really tired, and a lot of people find this, you may well be being targeted yourself. Like if you get really tired and you go to bed and think, oh, I'm surely asleep now, and then suddenly you lose all your sleepiness and stay awake the rest of the night. You could well be a victim of psychic vampires. Now, I'm apologise that this sounds so disgusting, talking about snot splattering and that inside your nose and that, but this is how it works. And just as I was going to sleep, I would suddenly find, usually when I inhaled, but even sometimes when I was exhaling, which is very strange, that the snot would splatter, and it usually goes up rather than down. So if you're exhaling, you'd expect it to go down, instead it can go up. That's very strange. It's completely unnatural, and therefore, that's some kind of evidence of something strange is happening. And if you breathe in, that's when they try and splatter. Sometimes if they know you're waiting to try and stop them, then they will splatter if they have to when you're breathing out. in order to try and surprise you and get somewhere rather than nowhere. But they really like it if just as you're going to sleep and you're maybe, I don't know, perhaps biologically going to take a deep breath as you go to sleep, they splatter then if they can. And because they want to get up as far as up the nostril as they can, up the nostrils as they can, because that seems to give them the best effect. And when I sense this happening, I just breathe out quickly to try and deprive them of my energy and my sleepiness and my mood. But then they just hang around anyway. Even if I blow my nose, they still just send another orb or whatever, because they've got a client outside, because they hang around outside in the street, or even outside my flat's front door. Because they're my neighbours. I have witches for neighbours, and they have easy access to me, and so they do just make use of me, unfortunately, psychically, and they just send orbs again and again until I become so tired, and they finally, and sometimes they have kept me awake for hour after hour, even nearly a whole night, very awake throughout the night, determined to get my energy off me. But more recently, they've given up on that and have just let me go to sleep a bit more. And then every time I try and go to sleep, they just keep sending back another orb until they finally get me. But it does help if you can breathe out suddenly, if you feel them about to do that just as you go to sleep. And at least then you're not being convenient. And I don't want to be convenient for these people who are farming me like a farm animal or something, taking somebody's energy just endlessly. It's like milking a cow several times a day. 2 or 3 times a day, cows get taken to the milking parlour and milked. That's how they're using me for my energy. And in all kinds of ways. And it's disgusting and horrible and painful and uncomfortable and humiliating and just aggravating beyond belief. It makes me so angry, very angry sometimes, really angry, and very upset. And then they just take that energy. Sometimes they deliberately make me really angry and then take that energy. And I'm just left feeling absolutely horrible. And they couldn't care less. They are horrible people, they really are. They're literally evil. They're so evil and horrible that I understand why the Bible says they will go to hell, because they're just that bad. They're just completely horrible people. And anyway, I think that needs to be investigated. I think it could be investigated. Is snot, mucus, nasal mucus, is that a good transmission fluid? It is. It's got salts in. So all parts of the body as well. Anything with liquid, especially the mouth, the eyes, the lower regions. They all have they've all got a lot of neurons and moisture that would allow you that would transmit electricity. So I think it's just a possibility that this is happening. I think they need to somebody should capture some orbs and maybe, since they're electrical, maybe with a magnet or something that might attract them and draw them in, and study these things and try and find out what they are, see what happens to them, see if they die, if you can kill them, if they have any matter that you could examine, because you can examine matter to find out what things are composed of. Seriously, you really can. You can examine the remains of things in some scientific instrument that I can't remember the name of now, and find out what it was, what the material was made of, and you can draw from that what the material was. You really can. You can tell if it was cheese or meat or milk or paper or wood. Seriously. I did that in chemistry class. years ago. It was very interesting. So you could find out what these things are composed of, and I bet you would find they're made of electricity, electrical things somehow. There's also material made these days that's very close to being air. It's 90% air or 98% air or something. I can't remember what it's called. It's called aerofoam or something. And it's extremely lightweight and mostly made of air. And it's very translucent. And don't forget, glass is translucent. And a lot of materials, a lot of things are translucent. In fact, I remember from chemistry now that things are translucent if all their orbits are filled, if all their electrons that they could hold are there. If you fill up something with all the electrons it can hold, it becomes invisible, it seems to me. That's what I learned in chemistry, that things, all the invisible things had all their electrons filled. So if you fill everything something's electrons, then it may become invisible. And maybe that's why orbs are invisible. They just have all their electrons filled. And they can go through you because they're very, very lightweight. They really are almost entirely electrical. You know, I mean, if people are interested in other dimensions, why aren't they interested in orbs? Some people are interested in them, but they see them as ghosts or UFOs. But you could also call them other dimensional or something, I suppose. And they could get a lot of interesting study done of them, I think. And that should be done. If I had the money, I would do that, seriously. I think it's worth it. If anyone finds this at all interesting, they should mention it to people and spread the around, because I really think it would be worth investigating. And I might even try and raise money to do it myself, and just pay various students, science students, to do various experiments, like trying to rig up magnetic attractors to and find orbs with night vision equipment, heat sensing equipment, infrared cameras, and so on. There's sorts of different names for the same thing there. And just find them and try and capture them, at least, to prove they're not specks of dust, as some people say they are, and so on. I mean, they vary in size anyway. Some of them are ridiculously big to be specks of dust. You know, some orbs are much, really quite big, like a foot across or something, or more, and they're not specks of dust. But they could be electrocuted, for example, to see if they, see what reactions they might have electrically. You know, there's things that could be done to examine them that are of interest. I think they escape really quickly as well if you try to catch them, which I think shows intelligence. Like if I've sensed them in my mouth, I've sometimes blown really quickly into a jar to try and capture them, and then microwave the jar to see, or not jar, plastic bag. The jar would catch fire, but a plastic bag, to see if anything happened. And I couldn't capture anything. So I think that what may be happening is they're very quick and intelligent and alive and sentient things, and they know they want to escape, so they do. They're very quick and they escape very quickly before you can get the jar closed on them. You know, so that alone would show intelligence. If they evaded capture, if they ran from capture, and apparently they do run away from people, they do move away from people, and they're not specks of dust anyway, because they move in very straight lines. Specks of dust would be blown all over the place, willy-nilly, you know, all around the place. But these things go in very straight lines. There's no way that they would move so perfectly straightly if they were specks of dust. And then you might say they're an insect. But how come they do usually move parallel to the floor, to the ground? When you see ghost programs, they usually do move parallel to the ground. And they sometimes do seem to change direction and move a bit. if people start interacting with them a bit more, or sometimes they actually do seem to move in a more willy-nilly way and hang around people. That is also interesting. You know, they hang around people a bit. I actually think you could do some interesting experiments with them to try to show that they're intelligent. Like, for example, making an opening to allow them to escape. If they escaped, that would show that they're intelligent. Now, you might say, well, a draft sucked out the speck of dust. But would that happen every time? Would that happen every time? I bet you that if you started making a hole, if you made an opening in the jar or took the lid of the jar off or whatever, they'd leave every single time. And if you did that 1,000 times and they left every time, surely that would show intelligence. You know, because a speck of dust wouldn't leave 1,000 times, would it? 1,000 out of 1,000 times. Sometime or other, he would get stuck, for example, in the glue of the jar. An orb wouldn't do that. An orb would leave every single time. And that shows intelligence. You know? So there are things you could do to prove this kind of stuff. And I think it needs to be done because whether or not all orbs are evil, I don't know. Maybe some of them are just animals. But, and I would be inclined to have a little mercy on them for that because I'm an animal lover. But I think some of them, or many of them, or even most of them, maybe even all of them, I don't know, are actually parasitic and not nice. Witch cast-offs and dangerous and damaging to health and violatory and intrusive and rapist and torturing and thieving and so on, and all sorts of bad things. Even murderous, if you think about how much energy they take over time. If they keep stealing someone's health enough, right, that person could end up dead. Maybe they've killed many people over the years. Maybe they've killed millions of people over the years. Who knows? I think there are quite a few of them in the population, there are quite a few of them actually, and they could be doing a huge amount of harm to people without people knowing about it. And I think they work together, which they do, I know they do, to run societies and stop people believing in things like witchcraft so they can exploit them at will. So they're never going to admit what they're doing. And as a consequence, people must either do investigations for themselves and try and help themselves, which won't be easy because these are evil, bad people and they run things, or just suffer forever because they either don't believe that this kind of thing is happening or don't know what to do about it and feel too helpless to do anything about it, or even just don't care, even though they may be being affected themselves. I mean, I don't know if everybody is affected. Maybe some people aren't. But some people are, and maybe everyone is. Maybe everyone's got something to offer. You know, maybe everyone has something that is worth stealing from them. You know, so people should be interested in this and care about it and want something done about it. I do anyway. I want something done about it. And hence me making this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching and try to spread the word. Thank you very much. Bye.